Good day, children. Welcome to your English class. I hope that you all are ready to start with the new academic year. This year, we have NCERT textbook as a literature text. Today, we are going to do the first lesson of our literature textbook. The name of the lesson is Three Questions. Three Questions is an intellectual, value-based story written by the renowned Russian writer Leo Tolstoy. The story is divided into two parts. In this audio, you have the first part of the lesson. So, shall we start, children? A king has three questions and he is seeking answers to them. What are those questions? And does the king get what he wants? Does he get the right answer for all these three questions? Let's see. Three Questions, written by Leo Tolstoy. The thought came to a certain king that he would never fail if he knew three things. These three things were: what is the right time to begin something? Which people should he listen to? What is the most important thing for him to do? The king therefore sent messengers throughout his kingdom, promising a large sum of money to anyone who would answer these three questions. So the first paragraph tells us about a king who wants to answer his three questions. He believes that if he gets answers for these three questions, he would be able to rule his kingdom in a better way. Which are those three questions, children? The first one is what the right time was to begin something. Second one, which people he should listen to. And the third one is how to decide what the most important thing for him to do was. So these are the three questions that he wants to get the answer. So he sent some messengers throughout his kingdom and also promised to give reward to the person who gave a wise answer for these three questions. Many wise men came to the king, but they all answered his questions differently. In reply to the first question, some said the king must prepare a timetable and then follow it strictly. Only in this way, they said, could he do everything at its proper time. Others said that it was impossible to decide in advance the right time for doing something. The king should notice all that was going on, avoid foolish pleasures, and always do whatever seemed necessary at that time. Yet others said that the king needed a council of wise men who would help him act at the proper time. This was because one man would find it impossible to decide correctly without help from others. The right time for every action. But then others said that there were some things which could be urgent. These things could not wait for the decision of the council. In order to decide the right time for doing something, it is necessary to look into the future, and only magicians could do that. The king therefore would have to go to magicians. Now we know that if we ask people about their opinion, they all will have different opinions based on their perceptions. The same thing happened here also. When the king asked these questions to the people, to the wise men, they all came up with different answers. Some of them suggested the king to have a timetable, to maintain a timetable and follow that. But others objected that it is not possible for the king to plan everything in advance, so it's not possible for him to keep a timetable and work on it. So it is better for him to keep a council of wise men who would help him to act at the right time. Now, council means it's a group of people who can give advice to the king. But for that also, some of them disagreed, as it is not possible for the council to give the decision at right time in the matters which could be urgent. So, in order to decide the right time for doing something, a few wise men suggested that it is better for the king to go to magicians in order to decide about the right time for doing something. So these are the different opinions that the king got from the wise men regarding his first question. Now let's see what are the opinions the king would get regarding his second and third question. Please look into your textbook. In their answers to the second question, some said that the people most necessary to the king were his counselors, others said the priests, a few others chose the doctors, and yet others said that his soldiers were the most necessary. To the third question, some said science, others chose fighting, and yet others religious worship. As the answers to his questions were so different, the king was not satisfied and gave no reward. Instead, he decided to seek the advice of a certain hermit who was widely known for his wisdom. Now, for the second question also, the king got different opinions. What was the second question, children? Yes, to whom he should listen, right? So for that, some people said it is better for him to listen to counselors. Some said it's priests, some said it's doctors, and some others said it is soldiers who were the most necessary for him. And the third question also, he got different opinions. What was the third question, children? Yes, what's the most important thing for the king to do? So some said that it is science. Others said it is fighting. There were others who said that it is religious worship, which is the most important thing for the king to do. So the king was not satisfied with any of these answers and he gave no reward. Instead, he decided to get the advice of a hermit. Hermit is a person who lives alone and who leads a simple life. He is a very wise person who is widely known for his wisdom. Now let's see where the hermit is. Okay. Next paragraph. The hermit lived in a wood which he never left. He saw no one but simple people and saw the king put on ordinary clothes. Before he reached the hermit's hut, the king left his horse with his bodyguard and went on alone. As the king came near the hermit's hut, he saw the hermit digging the ground in front of his hut. He greeted the king and continued digging. The hermit was old and weak, and as he worked, he breathed heavily. The king went up to the hermit and said, I have come to you, wise hermit, to ask you to answer 3 questions. How can I learn to do the right thing at the right time? Who are the people I need most? And what affairs are the most important? Now we know that the king was not satisfied with any of the answers given by the wise men. So he decided to go and meet the hermit. Where did the hermit live, children? The hermit lived in a wood. What do you mean by wood? Wood means it's a small forest. So when he went there, he saw only simple people and the king decided to put on ordinary clothes. When he reached the hermit's hut, the king left his horse and went on alone. He didn't take his bodyguard along with him. When the king came near the hermit's hut, he saw the hermit. What the hermit was doing there? Yes, he was digging the ground, isn't it? He was digging the ground in front of his hut. So the hermit greeted the king and just continued with his digging. So how did he look like? Hermit was very old and weak, and as he worked, he breathed heavily. Now the king asked the 3 questions which he had in his mind. What are the 3 questions? How can he learn to do the right thing at the right time? Who are the people he needed most? And what are the affairs which are most important for the king to do? Now, affairs means what are the matters? What are the matters that are most important for him to do? The hermit listened to the king but did not speak. He went on digging. You are tired, said the king. Let me take the spade and work in your place. Thanks, said the hermit, giving the king his spade. Then he sat down on the ground. So when the king noticed that the hermit has become tired of working, he offered to work. So he took the spade from the hermit and the hermit sat on the ground, thanking the king. When the king had dug 2 beds, he stopped and repeated his questions. The hermit gave no answer but stood up, stretching out his hand for the spade and said, Now you rest and let me work. But the king did not give him the spade and continued to dig. So after digging the 2 beds means it's small patches of the ground for plants. After digging the 2 beds, the king stopped and repeated his questions as a hermit was not giving any response. But even then, the hermit did not give any reply. Instead, he stood up and asked the king to give back the spade, saying that the king can take rest and he will continue with his work. But the king did not give him the spade and just continued to dig. 1 hour passed, then another. The sun went down behind the trees, and at last the king stuck the spade into the ground and said, I came to you, wise men, for an answer to my questions. If you can give me no answer, tell me so, and I will return home. It is evening time now. Even after several hours, the hermit has not given any reply to the king. So the king has become impatient now. Finally, the king stuck the spade into the ground and said, See, hermit, I have come to get an answer from you. If you don't have an answer, please tell me that, so that I can return to home. So he was ready to leave the place now. But here comes someone running, said the hermit. But it was at that time the hermit and king noticed that a person is running towards them. This is the end of the first part of the story. Who can be the person that came running towards them? Let's find out that in the next part of the lesson. Thank you.